our local population. Yeah. Okay, it's 7:02, so I'm going to say, let's start. I'll say welcome to the January 2021 evening program of the North Coast chapter of the California Native Plant Society. Our first evening program in a new year. So there might be a few people who are not CNPS people here. So I'd like to say that the California Native Plant Society is an organization that brings together science, conservation, education, and horticulture to save native plants. And it covers the entire state plus Northern Baja California with 35 chapters. And our North Coast chapter is here in Humboldt County and Del Norte County and the western parts of Trinity and Siskiyou counties. So I'm Carol Ralph, currently president and field trip chair. It takes a lot of people to keep our chapter going, and I see our vice president, Andrea, is here. She's labeled California Native Plant Society, and our nursery manager, Chris Beresford, is here. And usually Karen Isa, our merchandise person, is here. Ooh. And I can't look through all the names, but we have a lot of good talent in our chapter. So before we go any farther, I'll just review the Zoom procedures. Everybody's being very good in having their microphones, their audio turned off. Keep them turned off unless you're going to speak. That avoids embarrassing things. And when you want to ask a question, you can use the chat feature. Click on the chat down below and write what you want to ask there. And Andrea is going to keep track of our chat questions. And also, if you want to stay invisible, that's okay. But sometimes the speaker can relate to the audience better if he sees faces for the time when he's not doing screen share. So if you want to be a visible part of the audience, please feel free to do that. Okay. Next, I'm gonna do what we call our yes, I would like list. So I'm gonna share my screen. Andrea, can I do that? Yeah. So there it is. Those of you who come to our in-person programs, let's see, will recognize the yes, I would like sheet. These are ways you can help the chapter or do things. And this first choice here, I want everybody to pay attention to. If you want to be notified of our walks and programs and other activities, you have to pay attention to an email that might find you in the future, but it might not, so you might have to sign up. We have to rebuild our email notification system because Yahoo Groups shut down without giving us a chance to get our email list. So if you want to be sure you're on our next email list, which we've just about got organized, it's going to be on Groups EO, you can put your email address in the chat, click up a chat and write your email address there and send it to the moderator, and Andrea will collect those. Or if you want to write me or phone me, you can do that. Okay. Then if you want to help propagate and take care of plants in our nursery, you contact this email address, which Chris, who you just met, will read, and she'll tell you when we have our work days. We have 3 weekly work days at this point, but we hope that we can go back to one bigger one. And if you want to buy native plants, if you live around the Eureka Arcata area and you want to buy native plants for your garden, just go by the Neeland Glen farm stand on Myrtle Avenue. That's at Freshwater Farms, just at the north edge of Eureka. And the farm stand's open every day, 12 noon to 6 p.m. And we have a selection of our plants on the shelves there. And if you want advice about your native plants, advice for your native plant garden, if you want to know what you have and get ideas of what to plant, you can call Melanie and she'll set you up with a team of our native plant consultants. These are volunteers who will come share their thoughts with you. And if you want to buy merchandise, we have t-shirts with this cool Gary Bloomfield art on it, and tote bags with the same art. And we have the CNPS posters of flowers of the redwoods, of the coast and other places. We have the garden signs that say native plants grow here. And we have assorted books, mostly from Backcountry Press, so Michael Kaufman's books. And you can email Karen to ask her about that. Okay, and you can find our future events on our website right here. So that's that for the share screen. While we're on this topic, I will also mention that we currently need help in a few positions in our leadership. We need somebody to help get future programs together. And we need people to join our conservation team, which is currently focusing on the effect of cannabis cultivation being sited right in those nice prairies that are set in the mountains among the forests. And if you're interested in helping with publicity, if you want to help with any of those things, you can email me or phone me, that number right there. Okay. Then other announcements. We're having a field trip on this Saturday to Little River State Park. And we have COVID safe procedures where everybody wears a mask and we all stay far apart and we stay in small groups, no more than 8. And we're going to see the restoration project that state parks did there, as well as see dune plants in fresh dunes and old dunes. So you can look up the information for that on our website. Okay, now I'm ready to talk about plants. And this is the chance for anybody who has seen any interesting plants in the last month or so to tell us about them. Let's see, if you want to say something, go ahead and unmute and just start talking. Anybody want to report a fun plant? I can tell you that if you want to review your winter deciduous shrubs, see what they look without their leaves on and see if you can tell what they are, you can go to the Azalea Reserve that's on North Bank Road. There's a real good selection there, and right now they all have dropped their leaves. That's one of those winter challenges they have more often in the eastern deciduous forest in the eastern US. So has anybody got something to report?
I'm seeing the first flower on my California Dutchman's pipe vine.
Oh boy. Cool, she says. First flowers people are seeing.
Yeah, pipe vines are one of the early ones. Go ahead, Chris.
We have sling pods, Scoliopas blooming in our yard right now. We have 3 different batches. That one blooms early. They all bloom at different times. And we also just recently dug one of our trilliums up and divided it. That was interesting. And we also did the same thing with the sling pods, which Richard said he'll never do again. So, but dividing the trillium was kind of scary because we didn't know what we had never done that before, but it went really well and we got like 12 new plants off of it. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, that was great. And we got like 20 off the sling pod. So anyway, that was mine.
Well, so that's interesting plant anatomy you were learning.
Yeah, we had to figure out how to take it off and, and not destroy the mother plant and not hurt the plants that we were dealing with. So
Yeah.
the sling pod looked like Medusa. I mean, it was like, turned it over and it was massive roots everywhere, and trying to figure out how to
Oh.
separate it into divisions was really hard.
Wow.
I
A
think we'll
real
go from seed from now on. So anyway,
Yeah, you've done well with the seeds.
Yeah.
It's-
that
is
was
there-
it.
Anybody else have plant things to share? Matt Dybala, are you trying to say something or are you just rustling papers? Okay,
No,
no?
Well, I've got something. It's not quite appropriate, but because they're not plants, but I've been having a lovely time looking at lichens out in the dune forest, and they're all just so vibrant and happy this time of year.
That's true. Yeah, if you're looking at plants, you might as well look at lichens too. Thank you, L'Oreal. Okay, well, I'm going to move on to introducing our speaker, who's I just met, well, I just saw his face for the first time this evening, and I met him only by email and phone before this, but it's been really fun getting to know Paul Heiple, who you'll see is an interesting person. He spent his career being an exploration petroleum geologist in the Northern Rocky Mountains and the Western Plains. So I imagine he's put in a lot of miles trampling around there. And being an observant kind of guy, he noticed that certain plants grew on certain rocks. You know, he had the geology and he was noticing the plants. And so he discovered that you might as well pay attention to the plants. They would tell him where the rocks were. And that worked well for when he was a geologist. And then for his next career or his next profession, where he became a restorationist doing native plant restoration in degraded habitats in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. There he kind of worked the other way. He used his geology to find the plants he wanted, and he used his geology to figure out what plants to plant in the area that was being restored. So he was paying attention to what the plants could tell you, and it really worked for him. And meanwhile, I guess he's a man of many interests because he started his succulent collection when he was 20. And as collections do, they only get bigger. And he's learned a lot along the way. And tonight he's going to share with us some of what he's learned about the native California succulents that he's worked with. Okay, Paul?
All right. Are we ready to share?
Share away.
Okay. All right. Are we, let's see, I want to go to. All right. I'm going to start with the Dudleya here. And as I'm one of these people who really likes habitat and what the plants are used for. And if you'll notice, there's a bumblebee right here. So you know now what one of the pollinators of Dudleyas are. So what is a succulent? Well, fat plants, we used to call them. They store water in their leaves, stems, and roots, or any combination of the three. All plants are passive water movers. We have no pumps in the plants, so it's important to know how these plants move that water into their leaves, and they do it with chemicals. They use hydroscopic chemicals to pull them into the leaves and put the storage water there. And when they need the water, they can break down those chemicals and move the water where they want it. And there's no clear line between a succulent plant and any other plant. Some even switch back and forth depending on what conditions are around. What are the advantages of a succulent? Well, they have a gulp and glide strategy. They have a time when it rains heavily, they can pull this water in and then glide through the drought periods. And they can pull it from salty soils because all you're doing is finding a way of getting it from the salt areas into your leaves, and you can build chemicals that will move it that way. They can even pull it from damp air at night. And most are what they call CAM, crassulent acid metabolism plants. They use carbon form photosynthesis, and they bring in the carbon dioxide at night and then metabolize it, photosynthesize with that carbon dioxide during the day. This allows them to go open their stomata when there's high humidity and close it when there's low humidity. And here are some of the types. There are leaf succulents like this Dudleyas, stem succulents like this cactus, caudex types that build these big, bulbous areas, and root succulents. That, by the way, is a Lewisia rediviva. Okay, where are succulents found? Usually where liquid water can be scarce or difficult to get, like deserts, rocky areas, mountaintops. Now, the reason mountaintops are places where liquid water is scarce is because water freezes and becomes unavailable for plants. So you will find a number of succulent plants up in the alpine zones. Also, if they're growing as epiphytes on another plant, they can then glide through if there's no rains for a period of, and like pickleweed, salty areas. Other areas of summer drought do not qualify. Here in California, you have the very long summer drought, but then you have this tremendous wet period. And the wet period is really bad for most succulents. So here we get that exception. Bulbs and corms are much more common. And they are a kind of succulent when you think about it. That bulbs are storing it in the leaves that are scales in the and the corms are a stem. But you don't get very many that are above ground. So for cacti, I left this one part of my talk in. There are 9 genera and 31 species in California. Many are large and not really good for a garden. None are native above the transverse range except one. Over in the Shasta Valley, there's a species of Opuntia fragilis, which is one of the most widely dispersed cacti in North America. The reason it is because fragilis, the pads break off easily, and they clinged to the animals of the Western United States, and they took them everywhere. As far north as 50 degrees north latitude, and some of them are found in the Shasta Valley north of Shasta. I have not seen them. I would love to go see this. It's the only cactus in Northern California. This is one I really liked. I've grown this before in Pennsylvania. It is Mammillaria basilaris. And these are some other ones that are, in fact, Mammillaria dioica grows in the California floristic province in Mexico and up into I think just into San Diego area. But location is important. Location. Here's my cactus growing right here. And this is the part of the house where the rains never hit. Almost never have the rain coming from this direction and hitting this side of the house. So this gets no winter rain whatsoever. And here it is blooming. Nice. It's not a native cactus to California, but it's a really nice one, Gymnospina. So let's get into the California goodies. Lewisia, 16 species in California. One lives in our Bay Area, and that's Lewisia rediviva. This is it. This plant is all over the place. It is the state flower of Montana. It's called the bitterroot. So if you look in Montana, you will see the Bitterroot Mountains, and they are full of them. The first time I saw this plant, I was sitting in an oil well east of Helena, Montana. And driving up to the oil well, there was an outcrop of a rock called the Belt Series. If you've ever been to Banff or Glacier, you know those big cliffs, the dark rock. That's what it was, the same kind of rock. And when I looked over, there were these pink dots all over. It's like, what is that? So I went over, and at that time, the leaves had dwindled away, and all there were the flowers coming out of these rocks. It was the most interesting thing I had seen there. Absolutely wonderful. Here in the Bay Area, these actually grow a couple miles away from me up on serpentinite. And we go out and look at them once in a while. And here's one of them. This is what it looks like as the just the plant before, when it's not blooming. And here it is blooming. This is, like I say, only a couple miles up north of us. And you can see its leaves are beginning to wither as the bloom comes on. Lewisia cotyledon is one that they sell in the stores. They have bred this to do all kinds of fancy flowers. It is really easy to grow. All you have to do on this one, by the way, is make sure it gets enough sunlight. If you don't give it enough sunlight, it won't flower. So, and here's mine flowering for me. This is a typical one. And the ones you buy from the stores are often nicely striped. I had this one too, Lewisia cantalovia. It has this cloud of flowers that are striped, and it has these sawtooth leaves. It's a fairly rare plant, but it's very easy from seed. Another one is Lewisia liana, I guess it is. I've seen this in several places up in the Siskiyous. It's a really pretty plant when you get a lot of them, but the flowers are small. It's kind of a cloud of flowers. One of the places I saw this was the Russian Peak Wilderness. We were coming down around the lake, and then there was this area that was just full of them. Very pretty. And if you look really carefully, you will find these really tiny Lewisias. There's Navidensis and this Triphylla, just teeny little flowers. This one has just 3 leaves per plant stem, just a little thing. Look for these in the wet spots, many places in the Sierras and the Coast Range. Our next group is Sedum. There are 16 species in California. 2 of them are locally native to the Bay Area. For your area, you've got a lot more coming in from as you get up towards Oregon. The species just go nuts. Our 2 native species are Spathifolium. This is it. And there are many, many varieties you can buy from the nurseries. They just have made many, many selections. And the other one that's native is Radiatum. Closer picture of that one. Here's another varietal of this that you can buy. This is more typical than the reddish form. They have this nice glaucous look to them. Find them along the shores, rocky areas over at Jasper Ridge, the Stanford Preserve. And I've seen these also even inland over towards or east of Mount Hamilton in a stream. This is a place called Woods Road in the Sierra Azul open space, where the whole place is paved with them. Just beautiful. They have these runners that go out and root, and they just can make a fantastic display. This is a group of them up in Cook and Green Pass area. There's a form called Purdii, which has closed rosettes, flatter rosettes. And here is the radiatum. You probably wouldn't notice this. In fact, when I've gone out looking at the sedums in the area, I always look for this because they don't have it on the plant list. It's so small, it's so inconspicuous that people don't have it on the list. So once I discovered it, I said, oh, this is probably everywhere. You're just overlooking it. And it has an unusual lifestyle. This is it in the spring. What it does is it's called an annual, but it really isn't an annual. It's a perennial that loses its roots and stem. And all it has is the top bud, which falls to the ground and sits in the leaf litter. When the rains come back, they start growing again. It's, you know, we think of a perennial as ones that keep the roots, but this one loses its roots and keeps the top. Very weird. And here's it flowering. It's really cute. So when you get up to the siskiyous, you start really getting the large number of very nice ones. This one is divergens, known as old man's bones, because it looks like the ends of bones. This is a place near Bolin Lake, which is just outside of California. Stone's Throw. I have not yet seen this actually in California. The field trip I went on when I saw these, unfortunately, we had a big thunderstorm come up, and before I could see it in California, we were driven off by 1.5 inches in the rain in the middle of July. So really kind of ruined the field trip, but yeah, I did get to see them at this location. Another one is in cultivation. You have to really treat this hard to get that beautiful look of the field plants. Sedum oregonum is another one that you see for sale. It's really a pretty plant, glossy, very lovely. I have not seen this in California. I don't think it does grow in California, but according to Jepson, it does. So someday I will find this in California. I did find this one in California. This is Sedum lanceolatum, very widespread species. I've seen this in the Rockies. It has these lovely red stems, and it sends up these beautiful golden flowers. This was on the PCT up at Cook and Green Pass on the highest part. They like the old areas where snow grows. Unfortunately, I don't think you can grow this. I think it needs to have the snow and the cold to survive the winter and come back. So I have not had any luck in keeping this one alive. Sedum oblanceolatum grows in these clusters. This is, this is up at Cook and Green Pass. There are these big outcrops on the east side of the Cook and Green Pass if you take the trail out that way. So now we go to Dudleyas. There are 26 species in California, at least when I did this talk there were. There are 4 local to us in the Bay Area, and actually there are 5. This is why I'm saying 6 is probably, or 26 is probably wrong. And they're highly variable. This is they're almost entirely found in the California Florida province and they grow up to 6,000 feet. Gypsum has them growing up almost to 9,000 feet. I have only seen them at 6,000. I haven't seen them any higher. And I wanted to put in, if you can get this, this is a wonderful reference. The Cactus and Succulent Society of America put out this special issue, which was entirely on Dudleyas. And you know, the articles are wonderful. They talk about the evolution. They give all the information on the types and all the species that were known at the time. It's just a wonderful journal to have. It's probably in one of your libraries. If you can go take a look at it, it's a really great reference. Great pictures in it too. This is the cover. So as she said, I started off collecting succulents, but I was also working with the Native Plant Society here in the Santa Clara.
The video cut out. You're on mute, Carol.
Paul, you froze. So Paul said his internet has been doing this. Don't panic, people, he'll be back. He knows how to leave and come back. Oi,
Hi, where did I leave off?
you were just finishing up with, you had that slide of the Journal of the Cactus and Succulent Society.
Okay. I knew this would happen. So I'm going to go back then. There's the journal. You got that?
No, wait, you need to share screen.
Oh, I need to share again. Okay, let me get back. Darn it, I knew this probably happened one point.
You were really fast. We hardly had a chance to miss you.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't, as soon as I realized I was all by myself, I stopped and went to reconnect. Okay, are we back to shared?
Yes.
Okay. So did you get that this is a really good reference?
Yeah, but you need to put it on slideshow because we're seeing your program.
Okay, I will
not
do
just the
that.
slide.
But I just wanted to catch where we were. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the next slide then. Here we go. Oops. Okay, I have to go all the way over. See how many we're going through?
This is our review session.
All right. I was getting to the part where when I was the flower show at Native Plant Society here, every year they would go out and collect plant flowers and plants from all over the area to bring them in and show them to people who wanted to come in. Well, one of them had collected a Dudleya, and I looked at it and said, you know, I could grow that. Not only could I grow that, I could probably start getting ones from all over the area by growing them from seed. So I proceeded, and this was the result. I started with, you know, this huge collection of Dudleya species. And it really became a big hit. You know, people would come and there'd be all these great plants to look at. Often that would be just about the time they were starting to bloom. So that's how I got into a Dudleya collecting. So now let's get into some of the interesting parts about Dudleyas. There are 3 subgenera. There's one down here in the lower right is a Dudleya. Then there's the Stenophyllum, which are these long, thin-leafed ones. There are none of those growing up here. And then there's the Hyacinthus. This one is actually its own genus for a while. These two oddballs are actually kind of fun. This one up here, this stenophyllum, this one is a, let's see, Dudleyas orchidea. Person gave me this one. I planted it in my garden. This is it after 20 years in my garden, growing without any care much at all. The only thing I do for this is I make sure the other plants don't grow over it and shade it out. It is really easy. And this is actually native down near the border. This barely makes it into California, yet it does just fine in my garden. So Hasianthus group are these oddball ones. They have open flat flowers. This one is Blockmanii. This one is multicaulis. And one thing you can do with the Hasianthus group you can't do with any of the others is you can clip off a piece of this leaf and they will root and grow new plants. I wish you could do this with all of them, but you can't. It is an oddball. It's a thing that Sedums do all the time, but not Dudleyas. So I'm going to start with the subgroup Dudleyas. They're mostly these flat-leafed, what you would typically think of as a Dudleyas. Here's the stenopedilum, or stenophyllum, I mean. Oh, I wanted to get to this quote that I got. Trying to remember. Names go out of my head. Anyway, a man told me this, that Dudleyas will break your heart. And the reason why is Dudleyas are highly variable, difficult to key out. They're evolving very quickly, and you can go from one place to another and they change, and they're not the same plant you think, but they are, or they might be a new plant. It's really hard to work with Dudleyas. And I know Steve McCabe. Steve McCabe has written up a number of new species, and he always says he wants to be very careful because he's written them up and then goes out and finds out they're intermediates and probably they're related closely to that, and maybe they don't deserve another name. And he's been doing that for almost 15 years on one that I have shown him. He thinks it's a new species, but hasn't come up with a name yet. So let's look at here in the Bay Area. We're going from west to east. Do you think there are different taxa here? Anybody? Okay. This one is a cymosa, regular cymosa. This one is an Abramsii succulents. This one's a cymosa insularis, and so is this one. So these three are almost, these two look like this one. This one looks like none of those. Yeah, the flowers are completely different. And it's really hard without the flowers to tell the difference. So here's a succulents blooming. Or I'm sorry, this is cymosa paniculata, the one that looks like a Abramsii.
I think we lost you again, Paul. Paul, there we go. These breaks give you a chance to catch up with him. Paul goes pretty fast. Put on your mic, Paul. We can't hear you, Paul. Put on your mic.
Okay, I was talking about the little notch in the petal of the Succulent, the Dudleya abramsii Succulent, that you could tell that that was an abramsii. Steve McCabe pointed that out in a workshop, a Jepson workshop. So that's pretty good that you can tell an abramsii. Dudleyas cimosas don't have that, but they look the same when you get over to those ones in the foothills. So I'm gonna, is that back again? Or do I need to share?
You need to share again.
Okay, something's really weird here. Okay. Are you back again?
There, yeah, we've got your
Okay.
screen.
And now I'll put it on. I hope this doesn't keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to set a record for how many interruptions you've done in an hour.
Okay, now I'm going to show you actual Succulent here. That was the Dudleyas cimosa paniculata. This is the Dudleyas Succulent. One of the things you can do with Succulent is it grows strictly on serpentinite. So you only find it there, and this is a good serpentinite, so I know the rock. Okay, now I'm going to take you a little tours of places. There's a place down south of here in the Santa Cruz Mountains where in 3 miles or 1 mile, there are 3 taxa of Dudleyas. On the furthest out on it, you get good cimosa. And then you get in the middle, only a couple hundred yards, and you find this plant. This one is the one that Steve McCabe has been working on for 15 years. He has told me that there's nothing completely like this. It's stoloniferous. The flowers are different. They're bulbous and waxy looking. The chromosomes aren't anything else. The last time I talked to him, he said, well, one of the problems with this one is this is the only location it was known. And he didn't want to name something a new species with only one location in the world, although that has happened with Dudleyas before. He has since found several new locations. This one is easily accessible to a lot of people. The ones he found recently are down in Fremont Peak area and really hard to get to. You can't just walk out of the car and go to them. These are very easy to get to. So he probably will name it. He hasn't done it yet, but it's a really cool species. It grows in greenstone in the middle of a creek, these big outcrops of greenstone, and they're all over it. And note the moss that they're growing on. I think that's one of the things that they really like. There's a type of moss that they're growing with it. And then you go another mile, the rest of the mile, and you're in serpentinite, and you have abramsii Succulent. Really an interesting spot. Now I'm over on Coyote Ridge, which is east of 101. This is an area that they're turning into a preserve. This is actually one of the first places I got involved with Dudleyas, was protecting Dudleyas Succulent. Our chapter sued some developers who were putting housing in a spot with a bunch of these. And of course, they're a federally listed plant. So we got them to give us $50,000, 8 acres of Dudley with exactly the same number of Dudley as the ones that they were destroying. And so from there, we've been building this place to preserve the Dudleyas. This is one of these really cool places where the serpentinite had silica fluids come up and form these little things, and it makes like flower pots. in this rock, and the Dudleyas are growing in the little flower pots all over this rock on Coyote Ridge. Very interesting spot. We're now moving down to a place called Cañada del Oro, and this is limestone that is karsted. So you've got these deep places where the water has eroded down, like forming caves, and the Dudleyas are down in the cracks. These are Dudleyas cymoses. It's a really interesting spot to see. This limestone block is maybe the size of a tennis court, and they're growing all over that. It is really an interesting way of finding them. Fortunately, because they are down in the rocks, when people go over here and stomp around, they don't step on the plants and destroy them. We're moving now down to Point Lobos, and there are lovely form of Dudleya farinosa. And, you know, they're just hanging off the cliffs like this. This plant is just stuck on the sandstone. I don't know how long it can last there, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And growing with it is also a form of Dudleya cespitosa. You can tell the difference between them. They're strikingly different with the red stems and the non-glaucous leaves. Moving down the coast a little further, this is on the Big Sur coast. Which group do you think those would be in? You'd think those might be the Stenophyllum? No, these are cespitosa. They're a Dudleya group again. I don't know how they come up with that, but man, are they ever thin-leaved. This was right off of, if you're going down the Big Sur coast and you see those pullouts, look at the other side. Just don't look at the ocean. Look at the rocks. You'll find great Dudleyas. Here's a close-up of that one.
Hi, Paul. Just a quick
Yes?
question.
Sure.
What time of year are a lot of these photos being taken? Like what months or season are you in? out there?
Usually I'm out wandering around in the late spring. If you want to catch them flowering, usually flowering in June or May, depending on where they are. I mean, you notice I didn't catch this one on flowering. I look for Dudleyas all the time.
Thank you.
Now I've gone, you've heard of the, any of you heard of the Mento Ferguson Road down in Big Sur? It's a road that goes from the Big Sur coast over the top to Hunter Liggett. It's a terrible road. But we took it one day and got up to the trail. It's called the Coast Ridge Trail that goes along the highest point above the Big Sur coast. It is lovely, and we came to this marble. We went towards Cone Peak, and this marble was covered with these beautiful Dudleyas cymoses, a really healthy colony with lots of young ones starting up. Here's a close-up of it. These probably get a lot of rain because the distance from the coast to the top is a couple of miles, and you're going up 5,000 feet. And when those big rainstorms come, it probably is just dumping on these. And they probably wash all that nice glaucous wax off of them. But they sure look gorgeous. Now that this is the best place I've ever been for Dudleyas. This is Conejo Mountain down near Thousand Oaks. And Conejo Mountain is volcanics. This is the whole Santa Monica Mountains are all these weird volcanics. And you can get some really weird plants like this one over here. That is a giant Coreopsis, which you normally think of as only growing out on the islands, Channel Islands, yet they're growing on the coast here or on mainland here. And here's some Dudleyas down here, Dudleyas up here, cool buckwheats. The whole place is absolutely wonderful place for plants. And they have Dudleya puverulente there. This is the place I saw the best one I have ever seen. The plant was as big as a dinner plate, had 5 and it was growing right on the side of a cliff. I mean, it was almost exactly perpendicular to the ground. And 5 inflorescence were going up with their bright red flowers. And I just wish I had a camera when I saw that. I did not have a camera that day. This is a really good one to find. It actually has a wide distribution. It gets into Arizona, and it's found in the deserts. It's found in the coast ranges all the way down to San Diego. It's a real showstopper when you find it, because usually they are big. Just, you can't miss them. But they're not real common. Another one is Conejo Mountain, is the Vertii. This is the only place that one is found. They had a fire down on Conejo Mountain a number of years ago, and at one of the conferences, they were worried that this might have been driven to extinction by the fire. I haven't heard anything about whether they've come back or not. They were asking for people to donate seeds and plants. I had some, so I gave them up to, repopulate this. There's another one. This is Dudleya parva. This also is only found on Conejo Mountain. This one's a really oddball one. It's in the Dudleya group, yet it dies down to the ground every year as though it's not there. That is a typical feature of the Hassaianthus group. Their stems are corm-like below the ground, and when they are done blooming, they die back to the ground and disappear. This one does it too, but it's in the Dudleya group. So now I'm moving back to the Bay Area. This is the Farinosa at San Bruno Mountain. This is an easy park to go to. It's a county park, it's a state park. You go up on the mountain and you'll find lots of these beautiful Dudleyas up there. This one was found in Bear Valley. This is Walker Ridge. You may have gone to that. It's a serpentine area. As you're going up Bear Valley, which is lots of wildflowers and good stuff, there are these rock kind of look like chimneys sticking up. And if you go there in late May, early June, the Dudleyas are blooming with the Clarkias. And it's just this beautiful rock garden effect of the 2 colors. This is another place, Bear Valley. There are rocks just as you're going into Bear Valley on the right side of the road. And these lovely Dudleyas are growing in the cracks in the rocks. And this one was a surprise to me. This is possibly not a Simosa, but this was growing on the road to Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. And before you got to the granites, you could stop by the side of the road and these plants were blooming. They have this lovely different flower, but they look very different from a typical Simosa. Okay, wanted to talk about rock gardens. And this is a place called San Mateo Canyon. It's just maybe 10 miles north of us. And in these rock gardens, you have these Dudleya spathifolium, and you have, this one doesn't have it. But you notice one thing that's in here with the Dudleyas? It's Orobonchi unifloras. They're parasitic on the roots of sedums, the pink flowers. Another rock garden, Simosa's growing in it. Here's the Dudleya, didn't put the name on this one. It's a little annual one, apparently. Why did I forget? Anyway, it begins with an R. Another one with the rock garden. This one, by the way, is a Roman zophia. This is the only place that's easily accessible where we've seen these growing. So how do you grow Dudleyas and Sedums? Use a well-drained mix. Elevated mounds are nice for ones that are outside in the garden. Make sure it's rocky and well-drained. Avoid locations for Dudleyas that are hot in the direct sun. They don't like that. They normally grow along the coast. One of the things that keeps them from getting hot sun is fog. They also are covered with that wax and sunscreen for a good reason. Don't water them in the summer months. It's surprising how bad they look after a summer. You'd think they were dead. You water them in the fall and they come right back. But that keeps them really happy and growing well. Do not let other plants overgrow your plants. They don't like a lot of shade. It seems odd that they don't like direct sun, but they don't like a lot of shade either. I use this is my standard pit mix for my greenhouse, 4 parts 120 grade sand, 2 parts some sort of organic matter. I use something called a nursery mix out of Lingso, which is a material supply, garden supply place. And I use 1 part, then 1/4 inch granite chips. This seems to work for almost all my plants. Some I add a little lime. If they came from a lime area, I make sure I add a little bit of lime to them. Couple of ones that I have never seen in the wild, but are really good plants for growing. This is Dudleya noma. It's really easy to propagate. You just break off the tops of these stems, root them, and they grow again. They keep producing new stems by dividing. They just keep, you know, the stem goes in 2 and you have to have 2 stems. This was a single cutting at one time and then it grew into this. This is my parva. Grow that from seed. I have 2 plants that produce seed. If you're going to grow them from seed from a greenhouse, make sure you isolate them from others. Dudleyas will hybridize with every other Dudleya. So if you want to keep them pure, you need to take some precautions. Steve McCabe has been pollinating and crossing Dudleyas all over the place and has come up with absolutely gorgeous things for the gardener. But I'm a purist. So this one is a Simosa, and this one is, oh no, I'm sorry. This is the desert one. This is Dudleyas saxosa. And if you want to go see this one, I've never taken a picture of it, but if you go down to the East Mojave Desert and there's Mitchell Caves, and you go over there, these grow in limestone in the deserts. So you go to the caves and you walk along the limestones and you'll find these things growing in cracks in the limestone. This one's the Blockmanii. I saw this at Conejo Mountain. It's just these funny little rosettes of leaves that look like little spoon-shaped things. And this is what it looks like from a flower. You'll notice that the basal rosette disappears when they're flowering, completely gone, all dried up. And then it looks sort of like a, used to be a parvacetum, now I think they call them sedellas, with the flowers. And the flowers are flat out open on the Hassaianthus group. This is another Hassaianthus group, multicaulis. It gets these long, thin leaves and gets yellow flowers. Multicaulis is it comes up and gets many, many different stems and blooms with lots and lots of inflorescences. Dies back completely. Same with the Dudleyas Blockmanii. You wouldn't know there was anything alive in the pot. This is the Visida that I got that was looking kind of overgrown and cabbagey like from a vet vendor. He'd watered it too much. And you'll notice that things are stuck to the leaves. This is the sticky Dudleyas. And why it is sticky is this actually has evolved with a number of plants. I've seen it in ice plants, I've seen it in cactus, where they put a sticky material on them that catches dust, and instead of making their own chalk or wax to protect them from the sun, the dust and the dirt blowing around protects them from the sun. And they have pink flowers too. Another really nice Dudleya is the stolonifera, very rare plant, but it doesn't need to be collected in the wild. It makes these stolons. So it sends out side shoots, which grow longer and longer. You cut them off, you have a new plant. And this is what I got. I originally got the seed for this and ended up with these 2 pots full of seedlings. There are, I think, 11 plants in here and another 11 in here. And I've sold almost all of those off to members of the Native Plant Society at our plant sales. And I now can propagate some from stolons as well. So the seeds are easy and you don't have to get them fresh. You don't have to worry about going out. Dudleyas seed heads stay forever on the plants. And it seems like there are always a few seeds stuck in there. So if you go out, cut down off one of the old seed heads, carefully package it up, take it home, and then break it apart. The seeds are little tiny, almost dust-like. You can tell the seeds are different than the rest of the chaff in that they're kind of a thickened sack. Sow them in the fall when it's cool nights on an organic rich layer at the top at least. They actually, in the wild, Dudleyas appear to need lichens and mosses to get started. They do not start on bare ground or bare soil. It has to have something that will hold the moisture and those seedlings as they get started. Cuttings are very easy. You cut the stem fall or winter and make sure the ends are dry before you plant them up and put them in the usual mixture. They root and take off. If the stem is healthy enough, it will sprout new rosette heads, which you can take off and reproduce. And of course, the Hastianthus group, if you want to do those, leaf cuttings will do it for you. You don't need to do anything special at all. It's a very easy one to do. And that's the end of my talk. This is a fly pollinating a Lewisia, a very unusual fly. And I will take questions. Okay, Carol?
Yeah, great. So we'll let Andrea look at what questions were coming through.
Okay.
I know there are some, but that was great, Paul.
I hope you want to go out and look at them. They're really beautiful.
Oh, I do. Yeah. It just, I'm a bit discouraged because I'm not going to know what name to put on anything I see.
That was what I wanted to say about the ones that the idea that they'll break your heart. Don't worry about it. Enjoy them. You don't need to have a name. You just, I saw a beautiful Dudleya. Here's a picture.
Okay, they'll just all be friend Dudleya.
That's right. You get the, I remember when I was taking paleontology, he said, okay, to get the right answer, start from the top. What's the highest level? Do you know that it's a brachiopod, or is it a pelecypod, or is it, then you can get down further and further, you get more points, but you need to know where to start. And Dudleya is a good start. If you know it's a Dudleya, that's good enough for most people.
Is there ever a question telling a Dudleya from a sedum? Are there
Yes.
any that look?
Yes.
Oh.
In fact, actually, I've had they had over at the Stanford Herbarium that there had been a Dudleya, and when we looked it up in the herbarium, it was actually the Sedum spathifolium. And another person told me that there were Dudleyas up on this rock, and I went up and they were Montias. Little Dudleyas. He told me, boy, they're really tiny. They're only about an inch across. And I went up, oh yeah, I know that one. Yeah, there are some. The real trick is to see the flower. You know, once you see the flower, the Dudleyas have that. I guess the big problem is if you get them mixed up with Echeverias. But Echeverias and Dudleyas don't mix in the wild. Echeverias are down in Mexico. Dudleyas are over in California. Oh, by the way, did you ever hear that they found them in Utah? Dudleyas, yeah, Dudleyas make it all the way to Utah in the Beaver Mountains. Steve McCabe was just unbelievably thrilled to find this out. Other than that, they make it into Mexico only through Baja.
Okay, Andrea, have you got some questions there?
Yeah. Thanks again, Paul, for your presentation. So I was going to read to you. One question was, how long from seed to 2-inch pot? About how long does it take to propagate?
They take only, they actually grow fairly quickly. I think it's only 2 or 3 years before you've got flowering plants. I haven't done it in a while because I haven't been really that, working on it. But yeah, it's fairly quick. They're fast growing. Oh, I should probably talk about my fertilizer too. I use compost that I make in my own little, I take leaves like oak leaves, madrone leaves, put them in a little container, keep them moist, add a little bit of urea, and then make a compost tea with that, and they just love it. Grow fast.
On the subject of your potting mix, someone asked, did you say that you added a little lime to your potting recipe? That was for.
Well, I do if the species I'm using is known to grow on limey. Like that one that was on the marble, I would probably give that one a little bit of lime. They don't all need it. I'm very picky, I check the rock before I do anything, and then say, okay, if that's growing on that would probably need some lime in there. If you use the right kind of granite chips, they will have some lime in them too. That's why the granite chips are put in.
Great. Rebecca asks, can you recommend any sedums or Dudleyas for Southern California coast, specifically the Los Angeles area?
Well, I don't think any sedums get down that far. I would say the spathifolium is probably your best bet because it gets fairly far down. And if she gives them more water and a little bit more protection, she could probably grow any of them.
Grace says that she lives in the North Bay, about an hour north of San Francisco, and was wondering if the succulents would freeze outdoors in the winter.
Nope. They do not. I don't know about some of the ones down in the coast, but Dudleyas cymosa, at least, it can grow up at 9,000 feet. I've seen it at 6. I know there's snow there. I leave all my stuff out in an unheated greenhouse. Nothing's ever frozen.
Okay, and next, Lewis was asking if you have a favorite Dudleya.
Probably not. I mean, there's an awful lot of them I like a lot. I do have one that people want to get a hold of. It's a cymosa, I think, from down in the Santa Monica Mountains that has red leaves. They're all maroon leaves. It's very pretty.
Can you tell us of any signs that you might be overwatering a succulent?
Yeah, it rots. You lose the, usually it looks like they need water, and that's because they've lost their roots. And that's a very bad sign. If you water it and it doesn't revive almost instantly, you've probably rotted their roots off. You have to get them out, dust them with sulfur, try to get that rot to stop. And if you can get them cleaned up, dried out, you can reroot them again.
Okay. The next question from Donna Wild Earth asking, mentioning the old Peterson field guide, says that flower stems from sedums originate in the center, while Dudleyas come from the side. Is that correct? Is that hold
That
true?
is correct. Yep, that is, I cannot think of a Dudleya that doesn't send them out from the side. I wonder if the Hasianthus group, maybe some of the Hasianthus group come from the center. It's really hard to tell because there's no stem. You just have the roots and the flowers coming up out of the ground. I will check that out. By the way, if you look at the Jepson key, you will see that they have you dig them up to see the corm-like stem that's underground. And that's the step that you're supposed to take to find out if it's a Hasianthus group. I never do that. I hate digging stuff up.
The last question I see is, how do you prevent any pest problems? Are there common insect problems that you may have encountered?
You know, this is funny. When I gave the talk on this, I did have the pest part on there. The main part of pest is mealybugs. And I have found that using a systemic insecticide takes care of that problem. Otherwise, it's really hard to control them, and they really like them. One of the pests I mentioned, and this is when I first started, I took that collected plant home to my garden, and it had a caterpillar that was boring through the Dudleya. Turns out it's a butterfly's caterpillar. And I was talking about this pest that could, you know, eat the inside of your Dudleya out. And one of the people wanted to grow Dudleyas because they wanted to make the food for the Dudleyas, and that's just not a pest to them. They were, you know, okay, you know, everybody has their own thing. You know, you can sacrifice a Dudleya for a butterfly, that's fine. The other one is a few times I've had mites, but they don't seem to be very common. And the butterfly is out on the coast. Once I killed that caterpillar, I've never had another problem. They've never showed up again. I don't think they're here.
I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I did want to thank you for mentioning the bitterroot. That's my state flower. I'm from Montana.
Yeah. Did you ever see it in Montana? Of course you did.
Yeah, it's all over the hills in my hometown.
Yeah, I mean, it was just amazing to see it. For, you know, I was, you know, at that time I was getting used to Rocky Mountain. I'm an Easterner. I came from the East. In fact, I was going to tell people about this winter, you know, with all the deciduous plants workshop we had. And the professor at the university we went to had made up a key to go through all these sticks that we had to try and figure out what the plants were. I wanted you to guess what, when you went through the entire key, what the final thing was that you would come out with. Anybody want to guess? Poison oak.
Oh,
So here you were playing with all these stems, dissecting it all, and the final thing after you've eliminated everything is poison oak. It was a joke, of course. You didn't have poison oak in it, but
good. Well, unless you want to put in a plug for Edgewood, we can let the audience go, but I suppose, Paul, if you're not in a hurry, people can hang around and talk.
No, I'm
Sam?
not in a hurry. I was going to say Edgewood is my main restoration right now. And I've been working there for almost 24 years, eliminating the weeds from the grasslands there, actually every part of the park. It's a really joy to
Yeah.
see.
So you better tell people, a lot of us up here haven't been there, tell people where this park is. And
Oh, Edgewood County Park is on Route I-280 and Edgewood Road. It's got a couple hundred acres of serpentinite. It also has woodlands. It's a really interesting place. It's one of the few remaining places with wildflowers in the Bay Area.
it's on my list to get there someday.
Yep. It's easy to find. Just go to San Mateo County Parks and they'll tell you how to get there and give you a map.
So